I'm Bertjan. I have a studio in Rotterdam, a small studio, and when I mean small, I mean a big building with only 2 people in it. And there I make interior products, lighting, tables, but also textiles, and lately actually more and more textiles. It's a very interesting subject for me. And the way I work is very much that I very often start with a material experiment without knowing where it will end up or where it's going to be. So it's a very luxurious position, I realize, but I feel very lucky. But it's a very nice way of working for me to start experimenting with material without even thinking, should this be a light or a table or maybe a mask in this case. The masks take a very special place in the studio. They are very much like a hobby almost within or next to my work, although they are part of my work. But there's a big difference between the lighting, tables, and textile furniture I do, and this project. One of the things I like best is that basically that, design is a very slow process. So if you make a chair or if you make a light, it can take half a year, 1 year, maybe 2, or sometimes even 3 years before it finally comes from the first sketch to the final product in the shop. And therefore, sometimes I lose motivation. And the mask is really nice because I start it, and at the end of the day, very likely it's finished. So I really get satisfaction of making something. And the other thing I really like about it, and it's basically the same, but very often when you design, first you start with thinking, and then you start with execution. Maybe like you think in the morning, execution in the afternoon by making a model. But there's no sketching in the mask. So I just start, and then during the making, because the process is just the right pace, it's not too fast, not too slow, I can think of the next step and the next step. So maybe I start with the nose, and then I'm thinking about how the eye is going to attach to the nose, and then I think about how the cheeks are going to happen, and then the mouth, and maybe will it be a helmet or will it be something straight in the face, and I have to choose colors. But so when I start the mask, I have a general idea of what I want to make, and sometimes it's a picture, or sometimes it's a picture of a face, or maybe a mask, or maybe a shoe that I think like, there's a technical solution in there I can use for the mask. But I decide on the way. I decide while making how the mask will be finished. And then at a certain point, when I have the feeling it's finished, I finish the last piece, and then I think, okay, this is it. So that's the big difference between the mask and the rest of my work. But on the other hand, the mask really represents my favorite part of my work. There's one subject in the studio that I really like, and that's the subject of the basket. And it's not basket in the functional sense, that the function of a basket, but more the way a basket is created. If you look at my work, or at least my favorite projects, they're all fibers describing a shape or making a shape. So it's a fiber becoming a texture, becoming a shape, becoming a thing, which I think is also what a basket is. Like there's a woven basket, has some fibers, and all the fibers, maybe all the same material, but the same material can make the bottom of the basket, can make the side of the basket, can make the handles of the basket. And maybe it's because of the way I work, because I do material experiments. And when you investigate one material, you want to try as many solutions with the material as possible. So that's also how I like to make products. And for me, the mask is an ultimate example. You know, I'm still testing the rope to see what else can I make with it, what other faces can I make with it. But even if you look at the very first work that got into production, the random light, you know, it's also a basket, only a very non-structured, but it's just one fiber making the shape of a big sphere, which has become a light. And then also the carbon fiber, or the carbon chair, I also consider a basket, because it's like the seat is made of the same fiber as the base frame, only at the base frame the fiber is bound together and has become a very strong, sturdy, thick, almost metal piece, but it's fully carbon fiber. And then the seat has become like a shell to support your body. And I think there is something in the human evolution or in the brain that recognizes logical structures. And to me, the ultimate logical structure in design is a basket. When I first got the questions, so what does a new antique, new classics mean to me, I was a bit skeptical, because the question comes from a shop. And I think if you really want to make the new classics, we have to stop buying now. And then yesterday's product will become the new classics. But I also know it's not fair, because I also like to buy new things and I like to buy new products. And I believe that we should treat products more like classics. So basically it would become more, it's not about, for me, the interesting thing is not how to create new classics, because if you take it as a subject as a starting point, you put the bar very high, you know. You can never take it as a sole, the pure starting point for a product. But you can keep it in the back of your head, like, is the product I'm making now something that will be there in 10 years or 30 years? But there's not one simple formula for it, I think. So as a guide for maybe the buyer or the shopper who wants to buy a product that will last for a long time, or for the designer that has to make a product that lasts for a long time, I think the question is almost in the answer, or the answer is almost in the question. That when you buy something or when you make something, just think about it. Will it be here in 30 years? What will it be like? Will it be today's joke and tomorrow's boring story? Or will it be a great representation of the time that it's made in? And that, I think, comes also to a point where a lot of mistakes are made, that when people think they have to make a classic, they think they can just strip down the product to the bare essential, or to the bare core of the thing. It's a method, it works, but it's not the only method. I think I'm much more interested in the products that really represent today. You know, that when you want to make a classic for the future, you have to make something that really represents today. And also, if you look at the classics or the things that we consider classics now, but that were new in the future, they were very revolutionary. They were very much of the time. And because they represent the time so well, that's how they can go into history, and that's how they can still be around today. So I think the classic of tomorrow has to be very fashionable today, without being trendy. Because trendy is, of course, looking what everybody else is doing, and then hopping on the bandwagon and also doing something similar. But to think, to to really think like, wow, to want to create something unique that is really representing today.